My fiancée sneered right in my face with that arrogant, victorious smile. My ex proposed to me and I said yes, so I immediately kicked her out of my house and my life. But when she discovered her so-called soulmate had been cheating on her the entire time, she came crawling back begging for forgiveness. So I taught her a lesson she will never forget. Alright guys, this is going to be a long one, but I really need to get this off my chest because what the hell just happened to my life. So I, a 31-year-old male working as an electrician, had my entire world turned upside down in the worst way possible. Been doing it for about 8 years, decent money, steady work, was engaged to Sasha, 29, female, who's a physical therapist at some fancy sports medicine clinic downtown. We'd been together 4 years total, living together for the last 2, got engaged back in February, everything seemed fine after that. Started talking wedding plans. She wanted fall next year, big church thing, reception at a country club. I was cool with it. My parents loved her. Hers seemed to like me. Everything moving forward like it should. But then this happened. I'm on a job site all day, running new electrical for this office building downtown. Long day, dirty work, crawling through ceilings, and dealing with ancient wiring that should have been replaced decades ago. Came home around 6 p.m., covered in dust and insulation, wanting nothing more than a hot shower and some food. Sasha's car was in the driveway, which was weird because Tuesdays she usually stayed late for administrative stuff, some monthly meeting with the other therapists or billing paperwork. I never paid much attention to the details. Walked in and she's sitting on the couch still in her work clothes, but she looked different, excited, nervous. That look people get when they're about to tell you news, but they're not sure how you'll react. Like when someone's pregnant or got a promotion or won the lottery. I dropped my tool bag by the door and she immediately says, "Alex, can we talk? I need to tell you something." That tone, the tone women get when they're about to drop something heavy on you. "Okay, what's up?" She took a deep breath and hit me with it. "Jonathan proposed to me today just like that. No build-up, no explanation, just straight to the point." I actually laughed because I thought she was joking, some weird story from work or something she saw on social media. But she wasn't smiling, just staring at me with this serious expression, waiting for my reaction. That's when my brain started catching up. Jonathan, her high school boyfriend from like 10 years ago. I'd heard stories about him over the years, but figured he was ancient history. When I asked since when she was seeing her ex, she told me she'd been meeting with him for a while. Meeting with him, not ran into him at the store or he reached out on Facebook. Meeting like planned scheduled meetings since March. She said 2 months. She'd been secretly meeting her high school ex for 2 months right after we got engaged. While I was working overtime to pay for a wedding ring, while we were looking at venues and talking about our future together, and when he proposed, she said yes. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest, just sitting there staring at this woman I was planning to spend my life with. This woman wearing my engagement ring while telling me she'd accepted another man's proposal. Everything from the past 2 months suddenly made perfect sense. The late nights weren't patient care. She was meeting Jonathan. The secretive phone calls weren't work-related. She was talking to Jonathan. The new clothes and makeup weren't for professionalism. She was dressing up for Jonathan. The emotional distance wasn't cold feet about our engagement. She was falling for someone else. I told her, "Take off my ring, Alex." "Let me explain." "Take off the ring, Sasha." She slowly pulled it off her finger and set it on the coffee table between us. 3 months of my salary sitting there like it meant nothing. "You have 1 hour to pack your things and get out." "Alex, please, let's talk about this." 1 hour? She tried to explain, but there was nothing to explain. She'd made her choice, and it wasn't me. Called my sister while sitting in my truck, hands shaking from anger and shock. Evelyn wanted to come over, but I just needed Sasha gone. Needed her out of my house, out of my life, out of my future. 45 minutes later, she came outside with 2 suitcases, tried to say we could still be friends eventually. Friends. After destroying 4 years of my life for some high school nostalgia trip, she drove away and that was it. 4 years over in one conversation. Went back inside and the house felt completely empty, like all the life had been sucked out of it. Her ring was still on the coffee table where she'd left it. I picked it up, put it back in the box, stuck it in my dresser drawer, didn't know what else to do with the thing. The next few days were absolutely brutal. Took time off work because I couldn't focus on anything electrical. Almost shocked myself twice on Tuesday because my head was completely somewhere else. When you're dealing with 480 volts, being distracted isn't just stupid. It's dangerous. My foreman sent me home after I nearly walked into a ladder for the 3rd time. House felt like a tomb. Every corner had some memory of Sasha attached to it. The coffee mug she always used sitting in the cabinet, her favorite blanket still folded on the back of the couch. Little things you don't notice until someone's gone and suddenly they're everywhere mocking you. But here's where it gets really messed up. Her family started reaching out within 24 hours. First was a text from her mom. "Alex, I know this is hard, but Sasha has found her soulmate. Jonathan has always been the love of her life. I hope you can understand and be happy for them. Be happy for them. 4 years of my life, and she wants me to be happy that her daughter ditched me for some high school memory. Then her dad called, left this long voicemail about how sometimes these things happen for a reason. How Sasha and Jonathan belong together because they have real history and deep connection that goes back to when they were young. Said I seemed like a good guy, but sometimes love just finds a way, and this was meant to be real history. Like the years I spent with his daughter meant nothing compared to some teenage romance from a decade ago. Her sister texted me, too. Some garbage about how she'd never seen Sasha as happy as she was with Jonathan, how they were perfect for each other and true love always wins in the end. Like I was some villain standing in the way of their fairy tale reunion instead of the guy who got completely screwed over. The worst part was how they all acted like I should be grateful. Like I should thank them for letting me know that I was apparently just keeping Sasha's seat warm until her real soulmate came back around. Like I was supposed to graciously step aside and wish them well. Not one of them apologized. Not one acknowledged that what Sasha did was messed up. They were all just celebrating her finding true love without giving a about the collateral damage. I blocked every single one of them on everything. Social media, phone numbers, email addresses. Didn't need their fake sympathy or twisted logic poisoning my headspace while I was trying to process what happened. My parents, on the other hand, were devastated. Mom actually cried when I told her the whole story. She'd been looking forward to having Sasha as a daughter-in-law. Had already started planning outfit ideas for the wedding. Dad just got quiet and angry, kept asking if I wanted him to drive over and have a conversation with Jonathan. Had to talk him out of that. Last thing I needed was my 58-year-old father getting arrested for assault because he was defending my honor or whatever. Though part of me appreciated that he was ready to throw hands for his son, my sister Evelyn became my lifeline through all this. She'd show up every couple days with takeout food, making sure I was eating something besides whatever random crap I had in the pantry. Sat with me while I vented about the whole situation. Didn't try to fix everything or offer relationship advice. Just listened and agreed that Sasha was a piece of best part about Evelyn was that she wasn't surprised by any of it. Said she'd been getting weird vibes from Sasha for months, but didn't want to say anything without proof. Mentioned how Sasha would get this distant look whenever someone mentioned commitment or marriage, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. Evelyn also helped me start going through Sasha's leftover stuff. Amazing how much crap someone accumulates in 4 years. Hair products in the bathroom, random clothes that didn't make it into her emergency packing session, books and magazines scattered around the house. We boxed it all up and I dropped it off at her sister's place without saying a word. SAB work eventually helped get my mind off things. My co-workers knew something major had happened, but nobody pried. Construction guys aren't really into discussing feelings, which was perfect. The engagement announcement came about 3 weeks later. Professional photos at some park downtown. Both of them looking happy as hell. Her ring was definitely bigger than mine, which probably shouldn't have bothered me, but did classic move. Had to one-up the ex-fiancé even though his own relationship had imploded. Comments on that post were even worse. Meant to be. True love always finds a way. So happy you found each other again, like they were celebrating some beautiful love story instead of the wreckage of my relationship. Started wondering if maybe I dodged a bullet. Anyone who could throw away 4 years for some high school nostalgia probably wasn't marriage material anyway. Still hurt like hell, but at least I found out before the wedding, instead of 5 years and 2 kids down the road. Evelyn kept reminding me that this said everything about Sasha's character and nothing about mine, that I deserved someone who wouldn't even consider leaving, let alone actually do it. Someone who saw commitment as something valuable instead of something disposable when a better option showed up. She was right, but logic doesn't make it hurt less when someone you love decides you're not worth keeping. Stopped looking at social media after the engagement announcement. Figured whatever happened next in their fairy tale romance wasn't my business anymore. Had to focus on putting my own life back together instead of watching them build theirs on the ruins of ours. Been doing good these past few months. Work's been steady, picked up some lucrative side jobs. Finally got my head screwed back on straight after the whole engagement disaster. Then I got a text yesterday that made me question if I was living in some alternate reality where people have completely lost their minds. Sasha, the woman who destroyed our 4-year relationship for her high school ex, had the absolute balls to ask me for money for their wedding. I'm not even kidding. Let me break this down because the audacity is so unreal. I'm still trying to process it. It was a Tuesday afternoon and my phone buzzes with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Took me a second to realize it was Sasha because I'd blocked her on everything months ago. Apparently, she got a new phone or was using someone else's to contact me. The message started innocent enough. Hey, Alex. Hope you're doing well. Was wondering if we could talk about something important. My first instinct was to delete it and block the number. Nothing good ever comes from exes reaching out, especially ones who left you for someone else. But curiosity got the better of me. and I figured whatever she wanted couldn't make my life any worse than she already had. So, I responded asking what she wanted to talk about. Her next message made my jaw drop. She said she and Jonathan were planning their wedding for next month and were coming up short on funds. Asked if I could help them out with some money to cover the difference. Not alone, mind you, just straight up asking for cash to marry the guy she left me for. I had to read it 3 times before it sank in. This woman broke our engagement, destroyed 4 years of my life, chose another man over me, and then had the nerve to ask me to help pay for their wedding. The wedding that was supposed to be ours before she decided Jonathan was more important. But wait, it gets better. Her follow-up text said, "Jonathan doesn't know I'm asking you for money, so don't worry about that." Like, the fact that she was hiding this from her fiancé was supposed to make me feel better about the whole situation. Like, I should be relieved that at least she wasn't telling him about our conversation. The sheer audacity of it all was breathtaking. She thought so little of me, had so little respect for what we'd been through that asking me to fund her new relationship seemed like a reasonable request. In her mind, I was apparently just some ATM she could access when times got tough. I sat there staring at my phone for probably 10 minutes trying to figure out if this was some kind of joke. Maybe Jonathan was testing me or her friends were messing with both of us. But no, the tone was completely serious. She genuinely thought this was something I might consider doing. Part of me wanted to call her and scream about how insane this request was. How completely delusional she'd have to be to think I'd give her money for anything, let alone her wedding to the guy she chose over me. But that would have given her the reaction she was probably expecting. Instead, I asked her why she thought I'd want to help with their wedding expenses. Her response was even more unbelievable than the original request. She said we'd been together for 4 years and she knew I was a good person who wanted people to be happy. That even though things didn't work out between us, she hoped I'd want her to have the wedding of her dreams because that's what good people do. They support their ex's happiness even when it comes at their own expense. The manipulation was so obvious it was almost insulting, trying to guilt me into paying for their wedding by appealing to my character, making it seem like refusing would make me a bad person instead of someone with basic self-respect. Then she mentioned how much I'd made on recent side jobs, which creeped me out because how the hell did she know about my work situation? Either she'd been asking mutual friends about me or doing some social media stalking to figure out my financial situation. Both options were pretty disturbing. She also brought up how Jonathan's construction business was struggling right now and they'd already put deposits down on venues and vendors they couldn't afford to lose. Said they just needed a few thousand to make everything work. And she'd always remember how I helped make their special day possible. A few $1,000s to pay for the wedding that was supposed to be ours from the guy she dumped to marry someone else. I finally responded and told her she had to be out of her goddamn mind if she thought I'd give her a single penny for anything, especially her wedding. That asking your ex-fiancé to fund your new relationship was probably the most tone-deaf thing I'd ever heard of. Her response was immediate and predictable. She got defensive and said she was just asking because she knew I cared about her happiness. That she thought I was mature enough to move past our breakup and help out as a friend because apparently destroying someone's life entitles you to their continued financial support. I told her to lose my number and never contact me again. That if she was short on wedding money, maybe she should ask her family who were so supportive of her decision to leave me. Or better yet, maybe Jonathan should figure out how to afford his own wedding instead of having his fiancée beg money from her ex. She tried one more time, saying I was being vindictive and holding grudges instead of moving on like an adult, that helping them would show I was truly over our relationship and wish them well. More manipulation disguised as relationship advice. Blocked the number and went back to my day. But I couldn't stop thinking about the sheer balls it took to make that request. Months after destroying our relationship, she thought I'd be willing to bankroll her new one, like I was some charitable organization dedicated to funding her happiness, regardless of how she treated me. The worst part was how casual she was about it. No acknowledgement of how inappropriate the request was. No apology for putting me in that position. No recognition that maybe asking your ex-fiancé for wedding money wasn't exactly normal behavior. Just entitled expectation that I'd want to help because we used to care about each other. Like our history gave her permanent access to my wallet whenever she needed extra cash. Makes me wonder what other boundaries she'd be willing to cross if money got tight. Would she ask me to babysit their kids someday? Help with mortgage payments? Co-sign a loan when Jonathan's business fails completely? The entitlement is absolutely staggering. 4 years together and she learned nothing about who I am as a person if she thought I'd fund her wedding to another man. At least now I know for sure that leaving was the best thing that ever happened to our relationship. Can't imagine being married to someone with such a warped sense of appropriate behavior. Well, turns out fairy tales don't always have happy endings. Got the full story from my sister Evelyn last week. She'd been hearing things through mutual friends, but waited until she had all the details before filling me in. Smart move. Because this is some serious drama that I'm honestly glad to be watching from the sidelines. Sasha and Jonathan's perfect reunion lasted exactly 6 months before everything went to apparently, Jonathan's been cheating on her since pretty much day one, not just casual hookups either. Full-blown relationships with multiple women at the same time. Guy was running 3 different girlfriends who all thought they were his only one. Real piece of work, this Jonathan. One of them found out about the others and decided to blow up his whole operation. She contacted Sasha directly with screenshots of conversations, photos from dates, even videos of them together. The kind of evidence that leaves no room for denial or excuses. When Sasha confronted Jonathan about it, he didn't even try to lie. Just told her he wasn't ready to be tied down and she should have known better than to expect monogamy from him. Like cheating was just part of his personality that she should have accepted from the beginning. But here's where it gets really messed up. The cheating wasn't even the worst part of this disaster. They got into a huge fight at his apartment over the whole thing. Started with yelling and accusations. Typical relationship drama when someone gets caught red-handed. But then Jonathan completely lost his when Sasha said she was leaving him. He grabbed her hard enough to leave finger marks on both her arms. When she tried to walk out, he shoved her into the wall so hard she hit her head and ended up with a black eye. Neighbors heard the commotion and called the cops. Evelyn said this wasn't the first time he'd gotten physical either. Apparently, Sasha had been covering up bruises for weeks, making excuses about bumping into things or accidents at work. Classic abuse victim behavior that nobody really noticed until it was too obvious to ignore. The whole timeline is incredible when you think about it. 6 months ago, she left our stable 4-year relationship because she couldn't say no to her first love. Threw away everything we'd built together for some high school fantasy that existed only in her head. What she got instead was 6 months of lies, cheating, and abuse from a guy who never gave a damn about her. Jonathan saw an opportunity to have some fun with his old girlfriend and took it. Consequences be damned. Soon as the novelty wore off, he showed his true colors. Part of me feels bad for her because nobody deserves to get hit, no matter how stupid their decisions were. But mostly, I feel vindicated as hell. She chose excitement over stability, passion over trust, her first love over the guy who actually loved her. Well, she got exactly what she chose. Hope those 6 months of true love were worth destroying our 4 years together. The really crazy part is how Jonathan's handling the whole situation. Instead of trying to make amends or get help for his anger issues, he's doubling down on being a complete jerk. Told mutual friends that Sasha was too clingy and dramatic, that the relationship just wasn't working out for him. No mention of the cheating or the violence, just painting himself as the victim of some crazy ex-girlfriend who couldn't handle his free spirit. Classic abuser move. Make yourself look like the reasonable one while your victim deals with the aftermath of your Sasha's apparently staying with her parents and dealing with the reality that her perfect soulmate turned out to be a piece of the same parents who were so supportive of her decision to leave me are now watching their daughter pick up the pieces of her life. Her family's suddenly not so excited about Jonathan anymore. Funny how getting cheated on and abused changes people's perspective on someone's character. Where are all those comments about true love finding a way now? The same family that celebrated Sasha's choice to dump me for her high school ex is now dealing with the consequences of that decision. Suddenly, Jonathan's not the perfect man they thought he was when he was stealing someone else's fiancée. Evelyn also mentioned that people have been asking about me lately. Mutual friends who remember how Sasha left and are wondering how I'm handling all this drama. Most of them seem to realize now that I was the stable option she threw away for this disaster. Told Evelyn to let them know I'm doing great and have completely moved on with my life, which is true. Started seeing someone new a few months ago and things are going really well. Her name's Jade and she's nothing like Sasha, which is exactly what I needed. Jade actually knows about my past with Sasha, but doesn't make it weird or competitive. Just acknowledges that what happened sucked and focuses on building something good between us instead of dwelling on old drama. Complete opposite of the mind games and emotional manipulation I dealt with before. We've been talking it slow and making sure we're both ready before making any big decisions. Novel concept after watching Sasha blow up her life for some fantasy reunion. The contrast between my current situation and the chaos Sasha's dealing with is pretty stark. I'm building something stable with someone who actually wants to be with me, while she's learning the hard way that excitement doesn't last when it's built on. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well while your ex's life falls apart from their own bad choices. Sasha wanted passion and excitement over boring old stability. Well, she got plenty of excitement, just not the kind she was hoping for. Guess now, who's been trying to crawl back into my life ever since? Started about 2 weeks after Evelyn told me what happened. My phone began ringing from numbers I didn't recognize. At first, I figured it was work calls or spam, so I'd let them go to voicemail. Big mistake. First voicemail was Sasha's voice and she sounded like absolute crying, voice all shaky, barely getting words out between sobs. Said she needed to talk to me about everything that happened, that she'd made a huge mistake and really needed my help right now. Deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Whatever crisis she was having wasn't my problem anymore. She'd made her choice 8 months ago when she picked Jonathan over me. Living with the consequences of that decision was on her, not me. But the calls kept coming. Different numbers every time. Like she was borrowing phones from friends or using those temporary number apps. Sometimes multiple calls in one day, always going straight to voicemail since I wasn't answering unknown numbers anymore. The voicemails got more desperate each time. Started with apologies about how sorry she was for everything that happened between us. How she realized now that what we had was real and special and she'd thrown it away for something that turned out to be completely fake. Then they shifted to talking about Jonathan and what he'd put her through. How he'd lied to her from day one, cheated with multiple women, made her feel worthless and stupid for believing in their relationship. How he'd gotten violent when she tried to leave, and she was scared of what he might do next. The messages kept escalating. She started talking about how she understood now that I was the good guy all along. How Jonathan had shown her what real love wasn't. And it made her realize what she'd lost when she left me. How she'd been so stupid to think teenage feelings were more important than actual adult love. Classic manipulation tactics. Paint herself as the victim who'd learned her lesson. Make me out to be the hero she'd been too blind to appreciate. Try to guilt me into feeling responsible for helping her through this crisis she'd created for herself. Then came the messages about wanting to try again. How she knew she'd hurt me, but people make mistakes. And couldn't we work past this together? How she was a different person now. Someone who understood what really mattered in a relationship. Different person, same woman who'd been sneaking around with her ex for months while planning our wedding. Same person who'd chosen excitement over stability and then acted surprised when excitement turned out to be dangerous. The voicemail started getting longer and more detailed. She'd go on for minutes about specific things she missed about our relationship, how safe she'd felt with me, how I'd never made her doubt herself or worry about other women, how she'd taken all of that for granted until Jonathan showed her what the opposite looked like. She talked about our apartment, how she missed coming home to someone who was actually happy to see her, how Jonathan's place always felt temporary and unwelcoming, like she was just visiting instead of building a life with someone. Some of the voicemails were angry instead of sad, accusing me of being cold and heartless for not responding to someone who was clearly in crisis, saying I was holding grudges instead of being mature enough to help someone I used to care about. Those ones actually made me laugh. The same woman who destroyed our relationship was now mad that I wouldn't drop everything to rescue her from the mess she'd created, like I owed her emotional support after she'd chosen someone else over me. The calls started coming at weird hours, too. Late at night when she was probably drunk and feeling sorry for herself. Early in the morning when she'd wake up and remember her life was screwed. Middle of the day when something reminded her of our relationship. Always the same themes though. Started carrying my phone on silent just to avoid hearing it ring constantly. Jade noticed I was getting stressed about something and asked what was going on. Told her about the calls and she suggested I just change my number entirely. Part of me wanted to keep the same number out of stubbornness. Why should I have to change my contact info? Because my ex couldn't take a hint. But Jade pointed out that my peace of mind was more important than making a point Sasha would never understand anyway. She was right. The calls were affecting my mood even though I wasn't answering them. Coming home to 6 missed calls and knowing they were all from someone begging me to fix their life was exhausting. But before I could change my number, the calls stopped as suddenly as they'd started. Didn't hear from her for almost a week, which was the longest gap since this whole thing began. Figured maybe she'd finally gotten the message that I wasn't interested in being her emotional support system. Or maybe she'd found someone else to dump her problems on. Turns out I was wrong. She wasn't done trying to get my attention. She was just switching tactics. Saturday morning, Jade was staying over for the weekend, which had become pretty normal for us. We'd been talking about her officially moving in, maybe looking for a bigger place together, taking things slow, but heading in a good direction. I was making breakfast while Jade was in the shower. Then someone started pounding on my front door like there was an emergency. Not knocking, pounding like the building was on fire and they needed to evacuate everyone immediately. Looked through the peephole and saw Sasha standing there with her mom. Both of them looked rough as hell. Sasha had clearly been crying for hours, makeup smeared everywhere, hair a complete mess, wearing some oversized sweatshirt that made her look like she'd given up on life entirely. Her mom looked pissed and determined, like she was on some kind of mission to fix her daughter's problem. Same woman who texted me months ago about how Sasha had found her soulmate was now standing on my doorstep, ready to help clean up the mess that soulmate had created. I didn't open the door. They kept pounding, getting more frantic by the minute. Could hear Sasha saying my name through the wood, begging me to just talk to her for 5 minutes. Her mom was being more direct, pointing out that my truck was in the driveway, so they knew I was home. Then Jade came downstairs in one of my t-shirts, hair still wet, looking relaxed and happy, complete opposite of the chaos happening outside my door. Asked who was making all the noise, and I told her it was my ex and her mom. Before I could stop her, Jade walked to the door and opened it. The pounding stopped immediately. Sasha's face went through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Shocked that someone else answered, confusion about who this woman was, then anger when she realized what it meant. Her mom looked equally surprised but tried to hide it better. Jade handled the whole thing perfectly, calm, polite, but firm about the fact that I was busy. Didn't get drawn into drama or explanations, just stated facts. I came up behind Jade with my hand on her shoulder. Sasha saw me and her whole expression changed to desperate relief, like seeing me was going to solve all her problems. She immediately launched into how she'd been trying to reach me for weeks, how we needed to talk about everything that happened. Told me she'd made the biggest mistake of her life, leaving me for Jonathan. Her mom jumped in right away with the soba story. How Sasha had been through hell with Jonathan. How he wasn't who they thought he was. Interesting how Jonathan went from being Sasha's soulmate to some dangerous stranger once he showed his true colors. Same mom who told me how perfect they were together was now acting like she'd never supported the relationship. Convenient how that worked out. I kept my responses short and to the point. Not interested in getting drawn into their emotional manipulation or guilt trips about our history together. Sasha looked back and forth between me and Jade, clearly shocked that I'd moved on, asked how long we'd been together, seemed genuinely surprised it had only been 10 months since she'd left me for her ex. She tried the whole routine about how what we'd had was real, while Jonathan was just confusion and nostalgia, how our relationship had been solid and meaningful compared to her fairy tale reunion that turned into a nightmare. Too little too late. I told her that what we'd had was past tense. Finished the moment she chose someone else over me. Her mom tried a different approach, appealing to my character. Talking about how I was a good man, how Sasha had learned from her mistake, asking if I couldn't find it in my heart to forgive her. I explained that I'd already forgiven Sasha for my own peace of mind. But forgiving someone doesn't mean taking them back. Forgiveness is about letting go of anger, not giving someone another chance to hurt you. Sasha got more desperate, asking why I wouldn't even consider trying again. I laid it out simply because I didn't trust her anymore. Because she'd shown me who she really was when things got complicated, and that person was someone who'd abandoned our relationship for a teenage fantasy. When she tried to claim she'd been confused about her feelings, I called she wasn't confused. She was selfish. Wanted to keep me as backup while she explored whether Jonathan was a better option. Sasha broke down crying, begging for another chance, saying, "People make mistakes." I reminded her that I'd given her a chance for 4 years and an engagement ring, which she'd traded for 6 months with Jonathan. When she described those 6 months as hell and talked about how Jonathan was nothing like me, I told her that wasn't my problem. The consequences of her choices weren't something I needed to fix. Her mom made one last attempt, asking if I'd really not even considered taking back someone who'd realized what she'd lost. I explained that Sasha hadn't realized what she'd lost. She'd realized that her backup plan was better than her first choice. Not the same thing at all. Throughout this whole conversation, Jade stayed right beside me, could feel her support without her needing to say anything. She answered their questions about our relationship honestly, but didn't get defensive or territorial. Sasha's anger started showing through the desperation when she realized I'd moved on quickly. I pointed out that I'd moved on after she left me, which is what normal people do when someone chooses someone else over them. When she tried the guilt trip about our 4 years together not meaning anything, I explained that those 4 years had meant everything until she decided Jonathan meant more. I looked at these two women standing on my doorstep, one who destroyed our relationship for a fantasy and one who'd supported that decision until it backfired. 10 months ago, I would have done anything for Sasha. Would have married her, built a life with her, trusted her completely. Now she was just someone from my past who'd made really bad decisions and wanted me to help fix the consequences. I told them no. Simple as that. That hit both of them hard. Sasha's face crumpled, and her mom looked like I'd slapped her. They stood there for another minute, probably hoping I'd change my mind or invite them in to continue the conversation, but there was nothing left to say. Sasha had made her choice, lived with the consequences, and now wanted to undo it. Life doesn't work that way. They walked back to their car without another word. Jade closed the door and locked it, asked if I was okay. I was actually better than okay. Standing there with Jade, watching my ex and her mom drive away after begging for another chance. I felt nothing but relief. Sasha had wanted excitement over stability. Jonathan over me, her first love over real love. She got exactly what she chose. And I got what I deserved. Someone who chose me first every day without having to think about it. Just when you think you've heard the worst betrayal imaginable, another story proves you wrong. If you love shocking confessions, devastating betrayals, and unforgettable revenge, hit subscribe because the next story is already waiting.